Up next is Andrew Stevens, mass communications teacher at North Greenville, and also my dad. He's an ordained minister that worked in the staff of different churches for over 10 years. He'll be sharing how we as the body of Christ should respond to sexual abuse in our churches. As Diane Landberg, a child psychologist, once said, "You can make sense of child abuse and know God, or God and know child abuse. But how do you tolerate the two realities together?"
Sorry, thank you. I want to thank you, Jennifer, what you shared about the tornado. The tornado was real. Before I go into this into how we as a church need to respond, the victim and the family of the victim both need your support and ministry. One place where I served, before I left, I was asked by the deacons, "What's wrong with our church?" And I said, "It's something that's just an expression of the community. We have a town of perfect people. When people have problems, they become a case." We also have the second highest reported cases of sexual abuse in the state, in our county. When children are victimized and the families are victimized as well, they are not to be treated as cases. They are people who need love and support. They don't need the furniture rearranged. They just need help putting it back where it needs to be. They need somebody to walk with them as a friend. I just wanted to offer that to you when we encounter the situation, whether it's in the church, whether it's within any organization. This is not just for the church. This is for all of us who are involved in organizations where we have contact with children. And we do need to remember, what's the name of the gentleman?
Robert Perry.
Is he an officer here? He's with the sheriff's office. We need to remember his family. I'll just share briefly what he was going to share about mandatory reporting. Yes, it's there. And this is a good thing. This gives protection for the children by mandating that people who are in a position to have connection with children have a legal responsibility to report suspicions of abuse. Now, what did they say? "Oh no, I'm a teacher and I have to do this." As a teacher, you're protected. It's mandated by law that you report. For me as a minister, it's mandated by law that I report. Therefore, you are the legal word is indemnified. It's not your responsibility to investigate, to prove that it's right or wrong. It is your responsibility to report what the child said about abuse. It is the sheriff's office, it's the local police, it is Child Protective Services, their job to investigate. I've had to be the reporter. And it was very freeing when the sheriff said, "Okay, it's our job now. You do not need to take it's not your job to do any more investigation. We take over from here." Plus, even if the person were to be found innocent, they cannot come after you as a mandatory reporter. You are protected by law because you are obeying the law. In fact, if you fail to report, you are liable for jail and a fine. Okay? So just that's this sharing about the mandatory reporting in a nutshell. Now, let's talk about how we are to respond as institutions, as churches, and as believers. First of all, let's correct an error. This goes back to good old Freudian psychology. I am not a psychologist. I did not play one on television. Okay? That's a joke for those of you who know that I work on television. But this is pretty clear. Freud got it wrong. His investigations were were based in part on discussions, therapy with people who had been abused as children and grew up, and he met them as adults. And he formulated a lot of theory based on those conversations and came up with something called the Oedipus complex, basically that a child wants sexual activity with a parent to a certain degree. And that was used to justify, if you will, sexual abuse. That a child wants this. The child's normal sexual curiosity now becomes an invitation for abuse. And based on this, adults and abusers were given a pass. It wasn't taken seriously. In fact, until recently. In fact, it's interesting what you're sharing. I'm hearing like this is raising its head again. Somehow the child asked for it. You know, is that similar to what I'm hearing you say?
They're just saying that the memory recall is not accurate. Children have false memories.
Okay, somehow somebody's putting those in there.
Or what they're recalling is not actually what they're saying. What happened is not actually what they're saying.
Okay. Well, I also thought you were saying somehow in the family interactions and things. I misunderstood what you were saying. Okay, but the point is, as Linnea said, 1% of reporting by children of abuse proves to be false. And often in those cases, it's not that there's not abuse, it's just they misidentified the abuser out of fear, out of confusion. Maybe it's a parent and they don't want mommy or daddy to be taken to jail, so they'll blame it on uncle or aunt so-and-so. But there's still abuse going on. So, this is being corrected here. That's what this is part of. Believe the child. This has been used to put increased suspicion on the victims, especially if they are children. How do we respond? Number one, live as the tangible expression of who God is. I love that picture of the dove. You know, we're to be that safe place for that child. We need to be that safe place for that family. We are the flesh and blood expression of His love, faithfulness, and grace that the traumatized need to see. We need to establish the church as a safe place for children and adults who are potential victims or past victims of sexual abuse. Pastors, staff, people who are involved in the ministry, all of us in the body are ministers. And if you're part of an institution that works with children, you are part of that team as well. We all have a calling to protect. And we need to establish effective policies to prevent child abuse. And that is what we're going to talk about now. This is the focus. How do we develop an effective plan? First of all, start off talking to people who know what they're talking about. Have at least one person that you're dealing with who's an expert in the area of child abuse. Knowing what to look for, what the real studies say, not the things that are out of date. New data is coming out about long-term effects. And new laws are out. Have an expert in this area as part of your team. If you don't have someone in the church, find someone who is and bring them in. Church leaders are not trained for dealing with this. And if you go to the insurance company, I have to give you this example. Today, Jenny is working through the educational program at our church for their child protection policy. It's a very good program. But she was reading going through it wasn't a PowerPoint, but it was the thing about the scenarios.
It was the online training.
Online training that was added to it. And it must have been written by an insurance company. Because when they said, they gave a scenario and they told the pastor, yes, you need to report in order to protect your ministry. No, it's the kid. But I'm not belittling the training program. What I'm saying is insurance companies are about protecting assets. So if that one says, oh, we know all about it, still find an expert who works with the area of child abuse. Second, limit the opportunity for sex offenders to access children. Now, this does not mean you say, okay, this is a good person and this is a sex offender, we're going to limit their access. No, what they mean is you limit access where a potential offender could have access to a child. Okay, that means limitations on all of us. But protecting the child. Isn't that what's important? Number one, two-deep leadership. This is a mainstay of scouting child protection policy. And I know of incidents, and this is the first rule that this scoutmaster was abusive broke because he would take the boys out one-on-one to go work on his horse for merit badge. Respect for the child's privacy. Make sure that is written into the policy. How adult leadership is handled. Work with the children when there are needs, bathroom needs, whatever it might be, especially dealing with toddlers. We'll have a policy in place so people know what's expected for them. You will find that people who are more eager, if somebody is unwilling to follow policy for the safety of the children, that should be a red flag. It should get your attention. Separate sleeping accommodations for the children and the adults only. This isn't as much to protect the adults. It goes both ways so that, if you're worried about false accusations, well, set it up so there can't be. I mean, Billy Graham would never counsel a woman without having another member of the staff there. Okay? Let's put policies in place that protect everybody from accusation or abuse. Limit, if not prohibit, events at a workers' homes. I know that's hard. I know in our church we have a strong relationship between our leadership and our youth. And that's valuable. But this may be something that has to be looked at. Is, are we setting up occasion where someone could be an abuser? Also, make sure that people are dressed appropriately. Clothing that is suggestive can invite conversation that can lead into the grooming. Sexual jokes, comments, and behaviors are to be prohibited around children. I remember when somebody was trying to feel me out, and only in retrospect as an adult do I recognize that that's what was going on. I just knew I felt uncomfortable. And I just kind of shut up. And I let the conversation go elsewhere. But looking back on it now, he was seeing if I was somebody who would be willing to be a victim. And it started right here. And this was in a good religious setting. Also, windows on doors and open door. Windows on doors or have the doors open whenever there's somebody, when a child and an adult will be together. I mean, we have a rule in our house. A young man is not to be in the company of a young woman in any room in our house without an open door. Well, that's not a bad rule. Let's keep it implied there. That keeps everybody honest. Prohibit corporal punishment. It's not your responsibility to slap that child on the backside. This is another area where abuse can occur. Conduct background checks, oral screenings of workers. Ask candidates if they have reviewed the child protection policy. What are their thoughts? If they say it's just a bunch of hogwash, maybe they're not a potential abuser, but I don't know that they're going to be ready to follow the policies that they're in place. Number two, ask why they're interested in working with children. If it's because, children are bring so much into my life, well, then it's about them, it's not about the kids. Where is their heart in the ministry? Is it for them, or is it for the adult, or is it for the sake of the child? Number three, ask candidates if they have adult friendships. Why? Because sometimes instead of doing the hard work of maintaining adult friendships, children become the focus. That can lead to inappropriate. Also, give the candidate a hypothetical case and ask how they would handle it, kind of give you a feel. Well, what's the first thing? Well, then I'm going to go do an investigation. I don't know if we can trust a child. Red flag. What's the first rule? Trust the child. Teach personal safety to children in faith-based schools. Set a community, and that's what a policy does. Set a community standard, a culture that says we will not tolerate our children at all being abused sexually. And that's flat out known. Where the light is being shown, it's hard for people to hide in shadows. Let them know we're here to protect children. We are not going to protect abusers. And we have policies to see that that is in place. And it gives mechanisms and permission for the children They know what to recognize. Oh, that felt weird. I know who I need to talk to. And when a grown-up says, oh, this is just our little secret, oh, secrets aren't good. I'm going to go tell my mommy. I'm going to go tell my dad. I'm going to go tell sister or brother so-and-so because I know I can talk to them. All right? So make sure that the children have permission that's established in this culture. Don't investigate. That's not your job, and that's so freeing. When I did that report, like I told you, mandatory reporting, I had this report and I turned it in. The police said, great, we have it. You do your job. It was released. So that's free. But also, you don't have, most churches, most institutions don't have the scientists to know how to handle it. You can, the time passage can destroy evidence. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen enough CSI and NCIS and everything else. You know, DNA dies. So, or something like that. I'm not a forensic scientist. But anyway, passage of time. Delay in reporting is likely illegal, and you can be setting yourself up. That's just a reality. Incompetent investigation can taint evidence and keep the offender in a position to hurt more children. And that's what we do not want. Develop church policies for sex offenders seeking to attend the services or join the congregation. You're going to have people who, whether they're manipulators or going to come play the cry card, or whether they're people who are sincerely repented, you need to have a way to deal with people. I will tell you right now, these perpetrators are manipulators. They know how to play every card. They love churches because churches trust people. We believe in grace and redemption, and they will use it to get access to children. So, I can't give you the whole answer right now, but this needs to be part of the talk, part of the thought. How will you handle it when somebody who is a registered sex offender comes to your church and they want to participate? Make sure you're in compliance with the law. Know their provider. Review the court investigation. Determine the level of supervision necessary to protect children. It may mean that you have a group of 5 men who will get together and meet one-on-one with this individual to provide fellowship and training apart from the church building. It may mean that. And if they're not willing to do that for the sake of the children, red flag. Even if the offender is low risk, they should not be a part of the victim's congregation. You know, families in the church, father who is abusive comes back and says, "I want to be part of this church." No. If your heart has really come to God, let's let your child heal. We will find a place where you can grow, because it becomes another main thing. One of the main things about sex abusers is power. It's a way to impose power again. Congregation be informed of the offender's request and have a standing committee to oversee and enforce these policies. It's not, don't put this on your pastor. Have a group of people set aside who know the law, who know the policies, and will enforce them. Be aware that many offenders are seeking a cheap grace. Have they confessed to the offended, and to those whom there is accountability? Have they told the law, yes, I did this? Are they willing to be a registered sex offender? If they're not willing to receive the civil punishment, the civil deserts of their crime, they haven't repented. They're just looking to get out of it. They have survived manipulation. Would a murderer coming to your church be absolved without making confession? Just a question. Would they? Then why a child sex abuser? Develop policies for responding for an allegation within the faith community. What will happen during the investigation? What will be the status of that person? What if the government authorities do not charge, but the person has problematic behaviors? Maybe it's not really exposure, or maybe it's just some crude jokes. If you have a policy, maybe they're not going to be charged, but you violated the policy, you're out of here. We're not going to have that here. You've got to have a way to deal with it. The church should have a process with which to handle the allegations and protect children, even if the government chooses not to, because our first priority is protecting those children. Policies must be accompanied with training. Training sets the standard of conduct for all adults and can make a would-be offenders wary of participating in that organization because the light is on. Perpetrators want shadows. These sources are posted on the website that Linnea has for this study, so we don't worry about writing that down. But you can hit the links there. I have just barely scratched the surface. But these are just some general guidelines to help you as you're looking at the development of church policies. This right here, this article is more about the church plan, and this is about spiritual effects, as related to the church in part. That's another article that I would cite. And finally, if you're interested in laws regarding child protection and mandatory reporting, that will also be on your site as well. Thank you.